Hello, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Kurt Rohloff with Duality Technologies. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Ms. Lori Wade, Chief Data Officer of the U.S. Intelligence Community. Lori, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
Great. I'm very happy that we've had this opportunity. Excited to talk with you today.
What's the importance, particularly of non-traditional data sets, maybe even things like open source data, as part of your interoperability and pulling that in as helping the intelligence community accomplish its mission? And how do you see this basically influencing the growth of the data strategy of the intelligence community going forward?
I think, and I've been involved in this for quite some time. And of course, we have our open source enterprise, and there's been several studies that have been conducted. And I've been involved in almost every single one of those. And the way that certainly because of what I mentioned, it's just about the where and the volumes of data that have been created over time, right? So I mentioned the different pathways, the 5G, Internet of Things, during the pandemic, where data is created and how it's shared and where it lives has grown exponentially, right? And so because the open source enterprise has been a part of the intelligence community, and even open source, right, since even probably before the intelligence community was created, all of everything that's already exists, that's in place for how that is done and conducted, around the privacy and civil liberties, around everything, responsibilities, compliance, everything we have around that data still exists. It's just the volumes of that, right? And some of how that work is done will evolve with some of the technologies. But for me, the data strategy, and you'll probably see also in there's the line about all data. So again, mission and business data. Everything that we're doing from the data interoperability, data standards, all of the work that you see addressed in the strategy and everything we're putting into place is really what I would consider mission, classification, whatever, agnostic, right? Because we do this work today. We're not changing the work that we do today, but we're trying to figure out how to get it done in a way that keeps pace with the rest of the digital and data innovation that's going on. So we will still follow everything we follow today, but the criticality of that data is as critical of any data that we would collect or any data that we access or have access to, and we treat it in the same way against our values and our laws and everything else we do. But the point that I think is critical that we've got to really get behind with the strategy in the next 2 years here is the fact that if we invest to collect the data, get the data, then we need to make sure that we're using the data, that the data is discoverable, right, and that we are treating that data the same way across every type of data, and where we're that we follow that all the way through is going to be the critical piece, because being able to then, and use the title of the strategy, right, is unlock that mission value at speed and scale is going to be important. So we have to be able to understand what that looks like in a way that's different than we've had in the past, and not only that it's the volumes of data, but that we have capabilities and these technologies that we can do things with the data that we've not been able to do in the past. And by what I mean by that is, how do we actually get the best value and use of that data to all the people who need it to be able to make decisions, and then ultimately up to the decision makers, right?
Sure thing. That's interesting, actually, when you start talking about discoverability, and particularly obviously the ultimate use of data is to make decisions. What do you see as the importance of explainability and even traceability associated with the use of data when the U.S. intelligence community selects data analysis tools, whether AI, ML, or even standard off-the-shelf things also?
Well, I mean, to me, again, I try not to focus like this. The data-centric view of that focuses on the data, not the tools and the technology.
Sure.
And I focus on the policy and the standards and the things that we need to do to the data, and then it's really agnostic to the tools. And that's a shift, because I know a lot of people like to talk about the tools, and there's a lot of talk right now about the AI, the hype around that. And I'm trying to get people to see, well, the critical path to that is actually having data, quality data, right? And so once you have the quality data and it's discoverable and accessible, and if you've done that and you've tagged and labeled that data, it keeps its provenance and lineage all the way through. We'll actually be able to, and today, right, we have a huge responsibility, and our analytic tradecraft and standards is really about being explainability and traceability is already done, right? That's a critical thing. The volumes and the speed at which we need to do that is why it's so important to get the data management built in up front, so that we can actually have the machine to machine aspect to be able to then have that traceability and explainability all the way through. So I'm agnostic. The work I'm doing is to be able to get the data into a place where it can do all that, and it's agnostic to the tools, and understanding that to be able to use any AI, to do AI, to build AI models, to train those models, to test and evaluate the models, and then to actually operationalize them, you have to have quality data, and a lot of it. And so I'm focused on that aspect of it. And then the tooling, I'm agnostic to, right?
Certainly. So to also something you alluded to earlier is about the important relationship with organizations such as IARPA, various S&T organizations inside the intelligence community. What do you see as emerging hard technical challenges where there is potential opportunity for both support, whether it's from private sector, whether it's from other kinds of organizations that want to help with the intelligence community mission?
Well, I mean, that's exactly the session I just had out in Austin for this Future Now series. We brought all of the major organizations together from IARPA, from S&T, the Augmenting Intelligence, the Machines group. They were all participants in that. And the companies and the academic institutions that we brought together were all part of that, to sit and talk really about how from AI to the next evolution of the internet to immersive technologies, what is the national security impact on that? And we actually from that are building a strategy, the intelligence community strategy for for the intelligence community strategy for immersive technologies. And that includes the critical component pathway that includes AI and other things as we go forward. That's important. But another part of that I think also addresses some of the workforce part we were talking about is we're working with IARPA and S&T and others on this new program that the DNI is rolling out, and we're going to be a pilot for it, a data pilot, if you will, for what's called the Private Public Talent Exchange Program, PPTE, and that's going to be a great opportunity to use organizations that already have relationship with IARPA, a lot of the emerging tech areas that the S&T community has identified as priorities, and then how do we bring that into to bear on what I refer to as mission sprints. So taking real mission challenges and bringing those communities together, and then doing a talent exchange where we actually send people, officers out to work in the private sector on this, and bring those in a different way, but in a very defined amount of time, and across all levels, right? All security levels, so that we can better integrate the research and the science and tech communities into the real now, kind of, I call it data now, mission now, right, aspect. So we're actually putting together programs to do just that.
Sure thing. Thank you. So, Lori, I've enjoyed speaking with you. I've gone through all the questions I had on my list, and thank you for your time. Is there anything that you would like me to ask you as we wrap up?
No, I think, I just would, one thing I haven't really touched on, and I think it's something that you probably saw in the strategy itself, is the data strategy. It was built with an eye for the future, but grounded in the realities of today. That's why a lot of people have asked me, why does the strategy only go to 2025? And if you notice, it's a very concise document, very short document, very focused document. We've already started. In fact, we're in the second quarter of the IC wide. We have every CDO at every IC element working on the action plan that we jointly put together. We're finishing the second quarter of those actions related to the strategy that they're already doing within each of their agencies, that their agency heads signed off on. So it's a very action-oriented, focused strategy that we're already implementing. The other aspect is I stood up a data future group to be looking at what does 26 and out look like. So what are those trends? Everything I've just talked about, from the lessons we're learning from working across those communities, working with the private sector, what does the 26 and out strategy need to look like? So I have a data future group that stood up recently that's going to be looking at that. So that was the only thing I don't think we kind of touched on, is the implementation and execution of this strategy. There's a 1-year action plan. There'll be a second 1-year action plan for the next year, but then we're not stopping there. We actually have a group focused on what does it look like going forward.
Great. Well, thank you for explaining that, and thank you for laying it out. Actually, it's a very good point too. How's the rubber going to meet the road also with these
exactly.
far-reaching plans?
That's
excellent.
Right.
Okay, so I'll wrap this up and start the summary. Thank you, Ms. Lori Wade, for joining me today. Please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. And Lori, thank you again for your time.
Okay, thank you.